So guys, I just want to thank you so much for last video, as far as we probably had the most comments and thumbs up on any video that we've ever had, especially in the first day on our video, just by me asking you guys to. So thank you guys for following through. And today we're going to talk a little bit about my pet snakes. Now this is not one of my pet snakes, and I do have a pair of these. This is a black rat snake, or as a lot of people want to call by the current taxonomy, an eastern rat snake. So technically, this black rat snake, as well as the yellow rat snakes down in Florida, are technically the same exact thing. Now, I don't really want to go too far into all that stuff, but for me, I'm just going to keep my black rats separate than my yellow rats, because if you can't tell by the name, black rats are black and they get blacker with age, and yellow rats are yellow. And now I want to get into the fact that I do really enjoy this animal, but why it's not one of my pet animals, because pet animals are animals that are kept primarily for one's company, entertainment, or protection. And quite frankly, this falls into what is called a working animal, which is an animal that will breed for me. So I don't like to look at it exactly that way, but technically this is livestock or a working animal, even though I take this one out probably more than I want to admit and just hold it because it's a super amazing snake. But I want to show you some of my animals that are just strictly pet animals and I just keep for fun. So let's get into it. So let's stick with the theme of black snakes. So obviously this animal is not solid black, but this is what is called a Sumatran Short-tailed Python, and you may see them at reptile shows marked as black bloods, which is actually an incorrect description. These are not a blood python at all, but it is part of something called the short-tailed python complex, which includes your red blood pythons, your Sumatran short-tailed pythons like these guys, and also your Borneo short-tailed pythons. But I think it's important to use the correct nomenclature. Kind of how I mentioned before, you'll see them at reptile shows. These are very, very commonly imported, but it is worth it to go the extra mile and try to find a captive born and bred one. This one is captive born and bred, and you may see a lot of people, even though the Sumatrans are more laid back than a lot of the Borneos and the red bloods from what I've seen, you will see a lot of imports that don't exactly do well in captivity, or they are a little bit more defensive than, say, this animal right here. This one is really, really sweet. He has never bitten, never done anything, never struck at me. So, I mean, this is just a super awesome snake, super terrestrial snake, and they do great in things like tubs, or if you do keep them in some type of tank, you're gonna have to find a way to keep a lot of humidity in there without it being wet, which I find a little bit hard. But the coolest thing about them is typically that black head and those orange eyes. It just gives you a great contrast. And it will kind of freak you out. They have a super slow metabolism. They can go to the bathroom like only once a month or even less than that. So super, super interesting animals. So as I mentioned before, this is a pet, so I do only have one. This is a male, and I do not have a female. I don't currently have any plans of getting a female, so for now, this is just my pet Sumatran short-tailed python. We're sticking with black snakes, and you guys of course have seen this guy before. This is Medusa, who I thought was a girl, so her name, or his name rather, was Medusa, but now we change it to Medusa. And this is my male Mexican Black Kingsnake. I do not have a female, and quite frankly, when I bought this male Mexican Black Kingsnake, they were very cheap animals and they weren't hard to get a hold of. Nowadays, these have kind of soared in cost, and it just doesn't make much sense for me to buy a female until kind of the price comes down again, because I'm gonna see a lot of people producing these in the future. So therefore, I see the market going back down again at some point. I don't know if I'm ever gonna produce them, but I'm definitely gonna have this guy. There's really nothing better than that blue purplish belly. So check it out. This is my Australian olive python, and this is my lone female. Now, one of the reasons why I only have one of these is quite frankly the size. So these animals can easily get 12 feet or so. This animal's probably only at about 8 feet. I mean, there's only so many animals I can keep that are this large. And then also when producing them, there's only so many homes that I can qualify for an animal that's gonna get so large as well. So I don't really have much interest in producing these. It's an animal that you don't see around too often, and therefore it's a nice animal to have on hand to show people, like in videos like this one, who may not have even known that an olive python exists. And they're one of only a few python species that are completely patternless. And now I have a snake of the same genus of this snake that also doesn't have any pattern, so let me get to that one now. I would say this almost fits into our black snake theme, but this here is an Australian water python. They are a very, very dark brown snake with a very bright yellow belly. And as you can see, that just makes for a beautiful, beautiful snake. Now these are also pretty rare and of the same genus Liasis as that olive python. And so, like I said before, they're also patternless, which is super cool. And these animals are a bit smaller. They get to a very manageable length. This girl will not get much larger than this. You know, she may get up to 6 feet or so, but it is something to where it is super, super manageable. They usually don't have such a laid back attitude as this one does. You will see some of these come in as imports from I believe it's from Papua New Guinea. These guys are also prevalent. Because if you don't know, places like Papua are just above Australia, but this is an animal that traces back to Australia. And so this is a captive born and bred animal, which, you know, typically it's kind of a theme throughout these rarer things that I'm gonna show you, that captive born and bred animals are gonna be a little bit more chill, as well as they're just gonna do better in captivity. You don't have to worry about things like internal and external parasites. But water pythons are something that you just almost never see. And I mean, quite frankly, I know a little bit why, because, you know, typically they aren't this laid back. But I mean, even if it wasn't, these are just beautiful, beautiful animals. And you can see, they just have a super iridescence to them as well. Hopefully I can catch a little bit there on camera. And she's really, really interested in going out to the camera. Look at that, Australian water python. A lot of these guys come from Australia. And this here is my diamond jungle carpet python. So this is a mixture between a Morelia spilota, the diamond python, and a Morelia spilota Shine, which is going to be your jungle carpet python. And I may not have pronounced those correctly, but you get the point. Obviously, the jungle carpet python brings in the yellow. The diamond python brings in more of a highlighter type yellow color. And overall, I'm not sure what I'm doing with this guy, as far as he is a lone male, and I'm not really into crossing species or even subspecies of things, so I don't really have anything to do with him. I just like looking at him, and he is kind of an old guy now. I believe he is a 2011, and I just love him, and he's super, super chill. Unlike my other jungle carpet python, who isn't necessarily the most handleable, this guy is really, really calm. And quite frankly, I find that things like jungle carpet pythons are about as big as I want to go as far as snakes that I keep, besides obviously things like the olive python. So I believe this is like a perfect size for someone to keep, but not be too large to kind of eat you out of your house and home. Now I kind of want to show you guys this guy really quick. This is my jungle carpet python. Obviously a really, really beautiful jungle carpet python. I do not want to hold him that much, because honestly he bites everything. So let's get him back. Look at that. That's why carpet pythons are like the most difficult snakes to hook, because they just end up going and climbing up the hook. And I really don't want him to hit my face. So like, as you can see with that last guy, I don't feel any benefit to handling animals that don't really take to handling. So there's just no positive to taking him out, knowing that he's gonna bite me and he doesn't want to be handled. So I wanted to show him off, but I'm not gonna keep him out for that long. Now that we're on the subject of things that are more colorful, this here is our green tree python. This is Limeade. Limeade is a US captain born and bred Sarong and Maruke green tree python. These are probably, arguably, the most beautiful snakes in the world. I don't know many snakes that are much more beautiful than this. The most quintessential color for a snake, green. If you ever see a cartoon and a snake is always green, but there are really only a few species of snakes that are fully green. And as you can see, Limeade is super handleable, just an amazing snake. I think that is a bad rap that green tree pythons get, is that they're not handleable. And now they're definitely not handleable as little neonates, you know, the red and yellow babies, just because their bones are so small. The vertebrae need to be so pliable in order for them to be arboreal that it can be really dangerous for you to take them out as babies. But as yearlings to adults, I mean, they're very easily handleable. Most cases, if they're US captive born and bred. Now, a lot of your imports, a lot of your BAC localities, a lot of them are a little bit more cantankerous, and you're not gonna do as well with them as far as husbandry goes and keeping. They may not acclimate as well, and then they also will certainly not acclimate as well as far as handling goes. But that's not to knock import animals, but I think if you're starting off with a green tree python, you really gotta get the right animal, which is usually US captive born and bred. So I don't want you to think that all of my pets are pythons. This here is an Emery Rat Snake, also known as the Great Plains Rat Snake. This one was actually given to me by my friend Tony Jerome of Selective Scales. Tony works with green tree pythons and jungle carpet pythons and does hybrids of both. But he had this one lonely Emery Rat Snake that I believe he saved from a construction site or something like that. He had him for 6 or 7 years and then just gifted him to me. But a beautiful, beautiful snake. I actually got a video of this guy shedding yesterday. So they're obviously a very close cousin to the corn snake. They act a lot like corn snakes. Everything about them, size, keeping, breeding, all that stuff is pretty much exactly like corn snakes, but there are some noticeable differences. So the head's a little bit shorter and more stout than, say, your normal corn snake, which is something that I've noticed, as well as on this individual, the belly is just very pink. I know it's not coming out on the camera very well, but the belly has a pinkish hue to it, and it's just a beautiful snake and very peach colored on the sides. But it's cool to have snakes that maybe not everyone works with, because honestly, a lot of people work with corn snakes and there's corn snakes everywhere, but not enough people are working with Emery Rat Snakes, and I would love to actually breed these in the future, but for right now this is my lone male, so I consider him my pet. And he's probably not ever gonna be bred, because by the time a female is up to size, he'll be even older than he is now, so he will probably be too much of an old man. I'd probably just rather get a pair from babies and grow them up, but I will always have him, and I always thank Tony for giving him to me. Now listen, I still have some pet corn snakes. Just because I breed corn snakes doesn't mean that I don't keep any as pets. This is a female anery. Now she is up there a little bit in age, so we did breed this girl in the past. She had a clutch last year, and on her double clutch, her second clutch of the year, she actually had a twisted oviduct, so therefore her eggs did not come out properly. She was egg bound, and her oviduct actually prolapsed out of her, and therefore we needed to bring her to the vet. We needed to get her oviduct pretty much cut off is what they do. And they do have 2 oviducts, so I guess technically you could breed them, but I would never take the risk with breeding her again. So she is a pet, and I'll probably have her for the rest of her life. And now let's get to a snake that has been her mate in the past. Now this guy is a staple kind of our older crew, which includes that girl that I just showed you. But this guy, I've had him since middle school. This is Tony. He is about 14 years old. He's an A-male corn snake, and he is just really awesome, and I'm just so lucky to have had a snake for this long, you know. Corn snakes, for a while, were only thought to live about 6 to 8 years, But in captivity, I've known multiple people who have corn snakes 20 plus years, so I expect this guy to live quite a bit longer. If I put him with females, he would certainly produce for me. It would be no problem, but as of right now, I don't really have anyone for him or any reason to breed him or anything like that. You know, we don't need to make more A-male corn snakes because unfortunately those are kind of lower end animals. And when I sell lower end animals, sometimes I go to great pet homes, but also there's more of a chance that someone's just making an impulse buy, and I have to do a more thorough job actually for the cheap animals to make sure that they go to a good home than the more expensive animals, because quite frankly, the more expensive animals, they weed out the people who are just trying to get a snake for as cheap as possible and therefore house it as cheap as possible, feed it for as cheap as possible. I find that people are willing to spend more money on the animal are also willing to spend more money on the other things that come with the animal. Therefore, it makes my life a lot easier and I can sleep better at night knowing that I sold an animal to a good home if I produce more expensive animals, and that's just kind of the way it goes. But here is Tony, my 14-year-old amelanistic corn snake. There are quite a few circumstances that may lead to my animals being my pets. So this girl right here is actually an amel striped corn snake, and she is just a terrible problem feeder. She only eats pinkies scented with anoles, and quite frankly, like, she doesn't put on a lot of size or a lot of weight. So I'm not going to sell her to anyone, pet only or anything like that. I'm just going to keep her but never breed her, because clearly I don't think she'd be able to put on enough weight by the time she got around to breeding. And right now she is about 1.5 years old, and she's probably about, you know, 3/4 to half the size of most of my other corn snakes the same age. I want to thank all of you guys for watching and for checking out my pets. Please like, comment, subscribe, and if you made it this far, you're on the team.